muqtasid, when you read knowledge. So this is somebody who's a moderate in his religion. When you read knowledge, he's, it's not necessary that he become a master of dialectic and debate. And they said, لا يلزم المرأة معرفة الجوهر والعرض. It's not necessary for a man to have knowledge of the essence and the accident. These are theological terms that are used in kalam. وإذا مات الصحابة رضوان الله عليهم ولا عرفوهما ولا يلزمه أيضا. Because the Sahaba died and they didn't know the jawhar and the essence, right? The essence and the accident. ولا يلزمه أيضا أن يعرف هل الاسم هو المسمى أو لا. ولا تفسير الأحاديث التي فيها الوجه واليد والاستواء والكلام والتنزل والرؤية والكرسي والضحك ومسح ظهر آدم وأن قل هو الله أحد تعدل ثلث القرآن. ولا يسأل المرء يوم القيامة عن القضاء والقدر. ولا يلزم أن يعلم حكم الأطفال الذين ماتوا صغارا. ولا فلان أفضل من فلان ولو كان صحابيا. ولا هل مع الكفار ملائكة. ولا حكم يأجوج ومأجوج. ولا هل الروح أرض أو جسم. ولا كيفية قبض الروح ومحاجة آدم موسى ورؤية النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عيسى والدجال. ولا معنى نقص من أجره قيراط. ولا معنى إنما نسمة المؤمن طائر ومدى صوت المؤذن وعقد الشيطان على قافية الرأس وكيفية أكل الشيطان وشربهم شياطين وشربهم. ولا معنى إنزال القرآن على 7 أحرف. ولا يزني الزاني حين يزني وهو مؤمن. ولا كيفية ميزان الأعمال يوم القيامة. ولا الفرق بين الفقير والمسكين. ولا معنى لا ضرر ولا ضرار. ولا تحسسوا ولا تجسسوا. ولا معنى الذاريات والمرسلات والميسر والأب. ولا متى الساعة. ولا يلزم أيضا أن يسأل من صناعة النحو إلا ما يؤدي إلى الوقوف على كيفية التكلم. وأما ما عدا ذلك فإنه فضول كرافع المبتدئ وناصب الظرف خبرا. This is an extraordinary statement. It's not necessary to know the essence and the accident, or to know, because the Sahaba died, they didn't know those things. It's not necessary to know, is the name the essence of the thing named? These are debates in theology. It's not necessary to know what is the interpretation of the hadiths that have face and hand and istiwa and kalam, or how God comes down, or the vision of God and its nature, or what's the kursi, what's the throne, or the laughing when it mentioned dhahak in relation to God, or that God touched the back of Adam, or that Qul huwa Allahu ahad is a third of the Quran. A man will not be asked on the Day of Judgment about the qada and the qadar. It's not necessary for him to know what the ruling of children who die in kufr before they reach maturity. Nor does he know so-and-so is better than so-and-so, even if it's a sahabi. Or are there angels with the disbelievers? Or what's the ruling of Yajuj and Majuj? Or what's the nature of the ruh? Is it an accident or is it a body? Or how is the ruh seized? Or what's the nature of this debate between Adam and Musa? Or what's the vision of the Prophet ﷺ when he saw Jesus and the Dajjal? Or what's وَلَا مَعْنَ نَقَصَ مِنْ أَجْرِهِ قِرَاط. Nor does he have to know the meaning of it diminishes every day in reward a carat meaning like carat of gold. 24 parts. So the qirat is 1/24. Nor the meaning that the soul of the believer is a bird that flies, or how far the voice of the mu'adhin goes, or these knots that shaitan ties on the back of the nape of a man's neck, or what is the nature of the eating of the shayateen and how they drink, or what it means that the Quran came down on 7 letters, or that when a person fornicates, at the time they're fornicating, they're not a believer, or the nature of the balance of the scales of action on the Day of Judgment, or the difference between a faqir and a miskeen. This is a khilaf between the fuqaha. إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. They're the first two mentioned in the ayah in Tawbah about zakat. And so what's the difference of faqir and miskeen? Some say the faqir has a year's provision and the miskeen doesn't have a day's provision. Some say it's the opposite. He's saying you don't have to know the differences to get into paradise. Or the meaning of la darara wa la dirar, this qaida, no harm and no reciprocating harm. Or وَلَا تَحَسَّسُوا وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, don't spy and don't seek out information. Or what's the meaning of dhariyat in the Quran? Or mursalat, or maysir. There's a khilaf about the meaning of maysir. Or ab in Surah Abasa, when it talks about abba, one of the 7 foods. Umar was asked about ab. He said, what heaven will protect me, and what earth can I reside upon if I speak about the Quran things I don't know? So ab is one of those mysterious words in the Quran. So you don't have to know that. وَلَا مَتَى السَّاعَةُ, or when the hour happens. None of these things. You don't even have to learn grammar, except what's enough for you to speak. Right? And anything after that is just extra, like knowing why something كرافع المبتدا, right? What makes the mubtada marfu' and what makes the dharf mansub. What a relief. Seriously, what a relief. Ibn Ata'illah said, God's not going to ask you about the qadr and the qada on Yawm al-Qiyamah, but He's going to ask you about His awamir and His nawahi, and about His commands and prohibitions. He said, so seek Him where He seeks you. Don't seek Him in knowing the mysteries of the qadr. Seek Him where He seeks you. وقد يكون للعالم في هذا المأخذ مقصد يصير ذلك كله له حسنة بنسبة كقول المأزري لما فرغ من الحكم على من نسي صلاة وثانيتها ونحو ذلك. And so the alim, he has reasons for learning all these things, because all these things can be learned. Like, all these things that he mentioned, Sheikh Faraz, Imam Afroz, they've studied them. There's people here that have studied these things and the debates about these things. But they're not necessary for people to know. It's a fard kifaya on some people to study these things. And then anything other than that, they're extra. So he says, for instance, when Imam al-Ma'ziri talked about the hukm of the one who forgets his prayer and then the next one, and he said, I'm just mentioning these, لَيَكُدَّ الطَّالِبُ فِيهَا فَهْمَهُ فيكتسب من كده لفهمه فيها انتباها وتيقظا فيما سواها من المعاني الفقهية وغيرها مما يطالعه. I'm just mentioning this to stretch your minds a little bit, so that when you come to other things that are really important, that you'll be able to grapple with them. So he's saying sometimes you study things as a kind of mental exercise. وقد قسم في الإحياء العلوم المحمودة وأن منها علوما ليست بشرعية كالطب والحساب، وقال وكلاهما فرض كفاية لو خلا البلد عمن يقوم بذلك لحرج أهل البلد، وإذا قام بذلك أحد سقط عن الباقين. And in the Ihya he divided the knowledge, the beneficial knowledge, and those knowledges that are not from the Sharia, like medicine and mathematics. And he said, both of them are fard kifaya. In other words, they're part of the ulum al-shar'iyya al-musa'ida. They support the religion. And so some people have to learn it. And if a city or a country doesn't have it, then people they'll be constrained, they'll be hard pressed in that city. And if some do it, then the others have no obligation. Then he said, وَلَا تَعْجَبْ مِنْ كَوْنِ هَذَيْنِ مِنْ فُرُوضِ الْكِفَايَةِ. Don't be amazed that these are considered collective obligations. فَإِنَّ أُصُولَ الصِّنَاعَاتِ أَيْضًا مِنْ فُرُوضِ الْكِفَايَةِ. The foundational crafts are also from fard kifaya. The foundational crafts are the things that we need as humans, like zira'a, agriculture, husbandry, hiyaka, like textiles, engineering, mathematics. So you can, all of these things are things, crafts that need to be studied, and so they're all fard kifaya. And then he says, and he said, if you don't have a hajjam, like somebody who bleeds people, then it's a very bad thing. He said, لَسَرَعَ الْهَلَاكُ إِلَيْهِمْ وَحَرِجُوا بِتَعْرِيضِهِمْ أَنفُسُهُمْ لِلْهَلَاكِ. And they're hard pressed because they're exposing themselves to destruction. فَإِنَّ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ الدَّاءَ أَنزَلَ الدَّوَاءَ. The one who sent down the cure sent down, the one who sent down the disease sent down a cure. وأرشد إلى استعماله, and showed people how to treat these things. وعد الأسباب لتعطيه, and gave us the means in order to do so. فلا يجوز التعرض للهلاك بإهماله, so you can't expose yourself to destruction by ignoring these things that God has given us. قال وأما ما يعد فضيلة لا فريضة فتعمق في دقائق الحساب وخفايا الطب وغير ذلك مما يستغنى عنه ولكن يفيد زيادة قوة في القدر المحتاج إليه. And then those things that are virtuous but not an obligation, delving deeply into them, like knowing the details of mathematics or the secrets of medicine and things like that, that you really don't, they're not necessary. He said nonetheless they give greater strength. And so in that way they're good. And then he says, this is for things that aren't associated with the Sharia. So what about those things that are associated with the Sharia? ما لا يتوصل للواجب إلا به فهو واجب. What you can't achieve without it, when you can't achieve an obligation without it, that thing, the means, also becomes an obligation. And then he said, وقال في الإحياء وأما المباح من العلوم فالعلم بالأشعار التي لا سخف فيها والتواريخ الأخبار وما يجري مجراها. As for the permissible, those knowledges you can learn, like poetry, as long as it's not nonsensical, like stupid poetry, and history, and those type things. ومن نحو هذا قول الحافظ أبو عمر في استذكاره قال معرفة أعمار العلماء والوقوف على وفاياتهم من علم خاصة أهل العلم إنه لا ينبغي من وسم بالعلم نفسه جهل ذلك وإنه مما يلزمه من العلم العناية به والقيام بحفظه. So he says that knowing the ages of the ulama and their death dates, this is a special knowledge for the elect of the people of knowledge. Not everybody has to do it. لا ينبغي. And those who brand themselves with knowledge, if they mark themselves as knowledgeable people, they should know these things. But not everybody has to know them, right? So, Sheikh Muhammad Yaqubi, you ask him any alim and he'll give you his name, his father's name, his death date, usually when he was born. He knows all those. Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya knows all those. We know some of them. But that's a good knowledge to have when people died. Because the generation they were in, the ulama that were alive at the time. وبالجملة فقد تبين مما قرأته أن طلاب العلم كما قال الله تعالى ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم لنفسه ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله ذلك هو الفضل الكبير جنات عدن يدخلونها. All of them are in paradise, all these people. And so the Prophet ﷺ said سابقنا سابق ومقتصدنا ناج وظالمنا مغفور له. So our sabiq is an outstripper, our moderate one has salvation, and the one who impressed himself is going to be forgiven. And we ask Allah, and then he says نسأل الله العظيم أن يحقق لنا هذا الوعد الكريم وأن ينفع البعض بالبعض وأن يغفر لنا أجمعين إنه أرحم الراحمين. ثم من دون هذا المقام مقام آخر وهو مقام السادس. And then he says that, may Allah realize this promise in us. May He benefit some of us with others. May He forgive us, all of us. He's the most merciful of those who show mercy. And then after this maqam, there's the sixth maqam.